All right, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. On behalf of the Waikato Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight and engaging in the democratic process. If you didn't know, early voting started today, and there's some information about voting on the table if you need it, and you can go to vote.nz to find out more as well. So thank you all for being here. I also want to welcome everyone on our Stuff live stream that are watching tonight. Some quick housekeeping for those in the audience. The toilets are straight out the door behind us, and in case of emergency, we're going to gather out here in the courtyard. The Chamber is pleased to host this event tonight with the 5 candidates that we have here, and I want to thank them for taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here with us tonight. We're also very fortunate to have Mark Bunting moderating this debate tonight. Now, I'm sure almost no one in the audience needs an introduction to Mark, but just in case, Mark is a former Hamilton City Councillor, recently retired, current podcast host of multiple podcasts, I think, and a communications coach. And I'm sure he will engender some healthy debate tonight, which we're looking forward to. So I'd like to ask Mark to come up to the stage.
Thank you. Please stop clapping, everyone. Stop. A very warm welcome. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Mark Bunting, and I am not asking for your vote, which is quite lovely and it's quite refreshing. So it means I can ask and say whatever I jolly well like. So let's look forward to a great debate. First of all, a warm welcome and thank you to our candidates tonight. Give them a round of applause for being here. My name is Mark Bunting, and I am now on a mission to make New Zealand the friendliest place in the world once more. So let's see who else is. On behalf of the Waikato Chamber of Commerce, a very warm welcome to you all. It's my pleasure to be invited to be the moderator of tonight's debate. It's the first time my name and moderate have appeared in any sentence, so I'm quite excited about that. And this is the debate for the fight to the right to be your might in Hamilton West. We will meet our candidates shortly, but a few rules of engagement. Now, first question of the night. We are expecting nothing short of honesty from our candidates tonight. Would you agree? Honest answers? Good. I have an honest question for you. Who here has not yet made up their mind? Who here is telling the truth? Oh, just as many hands. Okay, so that's where you pitch your answers to, okay? Who here has made up their mind already? Who here has voted already? Good to see. Good. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So now we know what we're dealing with. So courtesy and manners are paramount tonight. There will be moments of levity, moments of brevity, moments of inspiration, moments of desperation, and there will be plenty of conversation about the state of the nation. Our candidates have not been briefed on this debate at all. They don't know what's coming at them, which is great because nor do I. So we'll see how good they are off the cuff. In 8 out of the last 10 elections, Hamilton West has reflected the government of the day. So yes, this is a bellwether seat. We're a year out from a general election. We've had the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the leaders of the political parties all here in the last few days. So yeah, make no mistake, they are taking this seriously. Please keep your interjections to a minimum. Was that you cleaning your glasses, Gaurav?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good. Please keep your interjections to a minimum. There will be a chance for questions afterwards. It'll be one question per member of the audience or per person as we go. Please don't make a political statement. Please ask a question, a genuine question. There are 11 candidates standing for this election, and yes, there are only 5 on stage. So this was done in the interest of time, and when the Chamber polled its members, these are the candidates that its members wanted to hear from. However, if there are any other candidates in the audience at the moment, could you please stand up now?
Kia ora, Rudy.
Any other candidates who are? All right, so Rudy, welcome. Rudy will be available for conversation later on as well if you want to make your way to him as well. Thanks for coming along, Rudy, that's great. All right. Tonight, we will cover the cost of living. We will cover crime, health, housing, transport, immigration, the voting age, and more. So introducing our candidates, can we have a warm round of applause in the blue corner, representing National, Tamapota.
Kia ora, kia ora. Kia ora.
In the red corner, representing Labour, Georgie Danzy. In the yellow corner, sitting List Act MP, Dr. James McDowell.
James, kia ora, mate.
Now in the pink corner, formerly Labour MP and now the Member Party leader and member. Are there any others? Right, and Dr. Gaurav Sharma.
Vocal.
And in the teal corner, representing the Opportunities Party, Naomi Pocock.
Good to know, mate.
Now, when I was told that I'd be or asked to host this debate and I made it public that I was doing so, I got sent a whole lot of questions from some of my most appropriate friends. I thought, I'm not asking that. And then I thought, hang on a minute. Yes, I am, so I'll ask them. Naomi, will you please sit on an angle for this entire campaign so we can recognise you? What's with the angular signs? What's that about?
We're attempting to tip the balance of power. And I'll explain more in my introductory speech, but there is a reason.
This is your introductory speech.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. So, Naomi Pocock for the Opportunities Party, ko Aotearoa Te Wakainga, which means New Zealand is my home. And I was really worried about the future for New Zealand, my children and their peers, until I found the Opportunities Party in 2017, and now I have hope. Because the Opportunities Party wants to bring research-led policy to the centre of the political divide and drive New Zealand in the direction that we all want to go: affordable housing, an innovative economy, climate change resilience, and a fair society for everyone. So I'm a project manager, an entrepreneur, a charity director, and a mother of 3 boys. I'm the daughter of a dairy farmer and a teacher, and I consider Hamilton to be my home. And I support the Opportunities Party because they look around the world, see what's working best, apply it to the New Zealand context to develop policy. They read the research-led reports and say, let's do that. Less of this political antics, more of the policy-based direction.
Okay, thank you. That just about answers the sign question. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Very good indeed. Okay, no, cute trick. Drives my wife crazy because if I go into the house and put a picture on a slight slant, I get thrown out of the house.
Sorry.
So don't be surprised if you see any of them corrected when you go out tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, another warm round of applause, please, for our top candidate, or our Opportunities Party candidate, Naomi Pocock. James, first of all, you're a doctor, James. What are you doctor of?
It's in business.
Doctor in business?
PhD.
Oh, you're in a friendly environment here tonight, aren't you? That's fantastic.
I just say, whatever medical issue you've got, I can't help. So,
I've got this right. Okay. So, James, were you waiting for Valare to close so you would set up an office in town?
you know, it's quite interesting. We do get a lot of people still coming and trying to get coffee off us. I think it was sort of a twist of irony. I mean, it's the state of affairs at the moment. You know, for businesses, small businesses in New Zealand, particularly in Hamilton, when they just can't find the workers and they just struggle to meet costs and they just end up going under.
So why the delay in the office? I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Why the delay in the office?
Yeah, and getting an office in town.
Yeah, so as a list MP, unlike electorate MPs, you don't get that funding. So it is a bit more tricky, but we do have sort of remote offices like our bus. We go around, we do town hall meetings in Hamilton all the time, and I'm available quite often, so we make up for it.
Good answer. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. James is here. He's in the house. Tama and Georgie, this is a joint question to both of you. Tama, you're on video saying that you love the government, and Georgie, you're in the paper protesting against Andrew Little. Would it just be easier for you two to swap rosettes and run for each other's party? Seriously though, Tama, what was that about? And Georgie, I'll ask you the same question.
I love all New Zealanders.
Nice answer.
And I'd love to be the person who earns the right to be the MP of Hamilton West.
All right, okay. And Georgie, tell us what happened. Why were you protesting at an Andrew Little appearance on kind of the day that you were about to be announced?
Oh, it was after I was announced.
Oh, after? Oh, that's
yeah,
even
so
better.
that makes it a
Okay.
bit worse. Yeah. But hey, look, there was no protesting. There was a miscommunication, and when I saw what was happening, I left the event. But that's sort of beside the point, because what I really want to focus on is ensuring that people of Hamilton West have a really strong voice. And look, I love Hamilton. It's an incredible place, and that's why I've made it my home. I live here, I work here, I'm bringing up my kids here. And when I'm out in the community talking to people of Hamilton Hamilton West, their feedback's the same, and that's that they want a strong advocate in Parliament that represents issues that are front and centre for them. These are things that we're going to talk about tonight: the cost of living, safe communities, and health and education. So, look, I'm a small business owner. Hamilton is my home. A previous teacher and a current union leader. I believe I understand the issues that are important to Hamilton West and would be an excellent voice in Parliament.
What's the business and where is it? And because I've heard you say you're a business owner in many debates, but I don't know
I'd love to talk about my business. It's one of my favourite things. So it's a Body Fit Training, which is a group fitness gym, and it's based in Te Awamutu.
Right, go on. How long have you had that for?
We opened it in September this year.
Congratulations.
Thank
Good
you.
on you. Tama, your microphone. Oh, sorry, a round of applause for Georgie, please. Thank you very much. Tama, your microphone. I'll give you another shot at that answer because your microphone was giving you grief there before.
Can you just ask me the question?
I was asking the question, would you rather actually just wear Georgie's rosette because you've been on video of saying how much you love the current government?
Kia ora, and kia ora to everyone who spent their evening here with us today, and also the candidates. Look, I love all New Zealanders, and if I earn the right to be the MP for Hamilton West, I'll be a strong voice in Parliament. Now, I want the city, and Hamilton West in particular, to be the best place to grow up and grow old in New Zealand, and not the ram raid capital of New Zealand that it's referred to today. I've spent many years overseas, in Hamilton, building houses, building businesses, undertaking charitable and community events for people, and I think I can bring some skills, knowledge, and networks to be part of the Christopher Luxon-led national team to take New Zealand forward again.
Thank you, Tama. A round of applause for Tama, please. Holly, I think you forgot to clap there. There we go, thank you. Right, and Gaurav. And these are questions that were forwarded to me that I wasn't meant to ask, but I will. Gaurav, if Labour is so bad, why did you stand for them in the first place?
Good question. Well, first of all, kia ora, and thank you everyone for coming here. I was just reminiscing that 5 years ago we were in another remark and you were hosting another debate with Progress to Health just around the corner, so not too long ago.
You were wearing a red Labour rosette at the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Look,
how did that work out for you there?
yeah, well, I'll tell you. I believe in the values that Labour Party talks about, right? It's like following a religion. All religions talk about similar stuff, right? It's about caring for your neighbour, kindness, working together, and making sure no person is left behind. And Labour talks a lot about that. And I agree that I've had my face next to the Prime Minister's photo on every street in this city. I've gone and done the selling as a salesman from door to door and talked about what the party has promised. But the issue is they haven't delivered. The outcomes haven't happened. And there's nothing wrong with actually saying, well, look, this is what I signed up for. This is what all of us signed up for, and it's not working, right? So there's nothing wrong in raising those questions, especially when you're part of that party, because that's what a good member of Parliament should do. You should be able to raise your voice for yourself and for your constituents.
Can I ask a supplementary question then? Why didn't you wait until the general election?
Because it's not about my career in terms of politics, right? Like I could go back to medicine and do this and just do that, and that would be a lot better. Financially, it would be better for me. For my career, it would be better for me. But it had come to a point where, I just couldn't wait any longer. It wasn't to do with the general election or timing it with something. It had come to a point where the bullying had gotten really bad, but also the lack of outcome had gotten really bad for all of us New Zealanders, including myself.
Thank you, Gaurav. Okay, so clap. Yeah, please clap. Right. So I've heard from two of you, I think it was Georgie and Tama, you want to be a strong voice for Hamilton West, but let's put a reality check on this. We've had some fantastic constituent MPs in the past. Several of them are here tonight, and we honour them. Tim McIndoe, David Bennett, Martin Gallagher, Jamie Strange is doing a great job, Di Yates was another one, all loud voices, but none of them were at the top table. And one of the criticisms we hear about our central representation is that we don't have a seat in that cabinet. How are you going to get there? How are you going to take Hamilton West to the top table? We'll start with, I will start with you, Georgie, because you were nodding the hardest, okay? And then we'll work our way around.
Yeah, Hamilton, I said it's a wonderful place, and we all agree on that in this room. And being one of our major cities, it's a very important place, and it's building and it's growing, and it's going to become more important as time goes on with our connections to other cities. We're coming to be a really great hub, and there's so many developments happening in this city that it's going to be something that the government and any party has to acknowledge. I feel like we're doing a lot of work so far in Hamilton, and there's a lot more to do. But as far as I'm concerned, my priority is ensuring that I'm pushing, having those conversations with ministers to ensure that Hamilton West and the voices of people of Hamilton West are at the forefront of their minds.
I'll give you another crack at that, because you've pretty much said exactly what Jamie Strange does, right? And he's great. He is in the air. He's like a mozzie in the air, and I think councillors here would agree. Jamie's a good advocate for Hamilton, but he's not at the top table. He doesn't quite carry that grunt, and I mean that kindly. How are you going to get there?
How much grunt do I have?
Yeah, how
Is
much
that
grunt
the
do you have
question?
with that top table,
okay.
and how could you get there?
Yeah, look, I've been working in advocacy for 15 years, and in that advocacy, I sit across the table from people and talk about issues that matter in order to come to agreements and negotiate while not letting go of my values and the reason I'm sitting there. And those attributes, combined with my knowledge of business, in my business I run the financial side of it, I don't have much time to do much else, with these two combined, understanding the balance between those two things of unions and business and how those things can work together, I feel like my advocacy, my experience in advocacy and business is something that's going to push me forward and show the party that I'm able to be sitting up at the front in cabinet and making the issues of my constituents heard.
Right, Tama.
Does that answer the question?
That's a bit closer, thank you. Thank you. Tough question. Tough question. Tama, what are your ambitions? How are you going to get Hamilton West to the top table?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Look, the most important thing for me right now is to listen, is to go out and talk with people, is to go out and find out what is happening in Hamilton West and try and win this by-election. I have no aspiration beyond winning this by-election right now. I've resigned from my job, I've thrown it in, and I've returned home to win this by-election. In the event that I do, then maybe I'll be up for selection, but right now that is not at the top of my mind. At the top of my mind are the hard-working people of Hamilton West, listening to them and channeling their concerns into this by-election campaign.
So can I ask and I'm certainly not hexing this for you, but say you were unsuccessful in this, you've tossed in your job, what would you do?
Well, I'll be on fish and chip paper on Monday the 11th of December. That's probably the first thing that'll happen to me, but I'll look for another opportunity to make a valuable contribution to the country.
Thank you. Gaurav.
He looks like me sometimes.
No, he has hair. Gaurav, now, at best, you get elected, you are a lone voice in there. How do you take Hamilton West to the top table?
Well, look, first of all, in the words of our famous Prime Minister, I reject the premise of your question because, I could say, Mark, you've only been a city councillor, why weren't you the mayor? But that would be a wrong question to ask because you've done so much for the city as a city councillor, right? The point here is not being a minister or being the Prime Minister, because if that was the point, then you wouldn't have a man in Sandringham die in the Prime Minister's electorate, because that would be the best electorate in the country. Right? It's about being the voice for your electorate. Not every MP in the country is going to be a minister. Not every MP is going to be the Prime Minister of the country. But what you need is a voice for the electorate.
Gaurav, we've heard the voice, but we haven't heard the big voice. And the question is about representation at that very top table for the fourth largest city in the country.
Yes, and if you want to get there, oftentimes in the big parties, you have to kiss a lot of ass to get there, which means not listening to the voice of your constituents, listening to the voice of the big party and following what they have to say against the best wishes of your constituents, and then make it in 5 or 10 years' time. I'm not ready to do that, and you've already seen that. I'm ready to fight for this electorate. I was the only member of parliament who took a petition against 3 warders. Despite the fact that I agree with a lot of things, there's some good ideas there in terms of investing in infrastructure, but despite the government saying you can't take a petition against your own party, I took a petition against 3 warders. Similarly, with removing the Russian ambassador, the government said you can't take a petition because it would cause a diplomatic issue. And I said, my constituents are asking for it. I should be able to take a petition. So I'm ready to stand up, I was in government. I would have stayed, I could have potentially won as the next Labour MP again. But the point isn't that. The point is standing up for your constituents and appreciating that not all of them agree with you. 67,000 people live in this electorate, not all of them will agree, but I'm ready to listen to each one of them and represent their voice.
Thank you, Gaurav. Naomi, and can you fit as many words into that shorter time as Gaurav just did?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So we've seen in New Zealand politics in the past that the most powerful position isn't necessarily at the cabinet table, it's in that central position, a strong party in the middle, changing the status quo, and that's what we aim to do. We want to sit in the middle, less talk, more action. We've got some solid policies to get there, and we just want the opportunity to make a difference for you all. Kia ora.
Got it. And James, how will you get Hamilton West to the top table?
Yep. Well, I think the most important thing as we look to the next year's general election and what the makeup could be with a national ACT government, you know, whether it's confidence and supply or whether it's in a formal coalition where you'd have ministers. The most important thing for us in ACT is having good public policy and getting as many of our ideas and policies through as possible in that arrangement. And that may be without ministers, it may be in a confidence and supply. The reality is if we can get these policies through, it will benefit Hamiltonians. For example, the $140 odd million they would get from our GST sharing arrangement. You know, that would feed into the community and it wouldn't require sort of this, once every by-election pork barrel politics that we've just had. That's what my aim would be, not necessarily to be a minister, that may be something that's, as part of future discussions.
Okay,
but most
I'm just going to
importantly-
respond. I can almost feel the hairs on the backs of necks going up with a part of that answer there. And this is the pork barrel politics. What specifically are you referring to?
There is a spending limit in these elections, and I think it's a shame that it's taken a by-election to get investments like we had with the Honourable Megan Woods around $140 odd million into Hamilton. This is
I'll
something that
pull
we
you
would
up on
do
that one.
every
You
year.
are aware they've been working on that for quite some
I
months.
am, but the timing of the announcement and the location of the announcement was fairly obvious, I thought.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Good. So while we are going on that, the power base, if you like, of being at the top table, having sat in the council chambers for the last 6 years, there feels at the moment, I think it's fairly safe to say there's a lot coming down the pipe from central government towards local government. There's the review of local government going on. There's obviously the little darling that is Three Waters. There's, what else is there? Oh, the NPSUD. How would you describe the current relationship with local government, and what would you do to either fix or keep the same? So we'll start with you, Naomi.
Thanks. So I think the relationship between local and central government is fraught, and as with any partnership, you're always going to go through some tough times. I think there are opportunities, though, to learn from where we do things well and to scale them up. And a good example is the Three Waters. After the Christchurch earthquakes, there was some local central government funding initiatives set up, and that worked well, and we could have just scaled that up instead of coming up with a whole new bureaucratic system, which is going to cost heaps and is quite unnecessary.
Thank you, Naomi. Gaurav, you're next.
Sorry, was your question
relationship
more around
between-
our relationship with the council or with the council?
How do you see the central government, local government relationship at the moment, and what would you do should you have influence?
Right. Look, the biggest problem with this government at the moment is, and I've said this to them many times, is there is absolutely no conversation and feedback. That applies to within the caucus, where there is no conversation at all. That applies to membership base of the Labour Party, who find themselves not being able to feed into their policy. That applies to voters who might not be members, and then non-voters as well. Same thing comes in with council table as well. We have councillors who are saying there's absolutely no discussion when it comes to, for example, Three Waters. My office received a lot of correspondence, thousands of emails with people saying, well, I'm against Three Waters, what are you going to do about it? And I said to them, well, go and talk to your local council, right? Your councillors are responsible for choosing what Hamilton City Council chooses. One day I wake up in the news, I find out that it's now going to be compulsory. Wasn't even told about it, right? That's the relationship we have, where something like that has automatically become compulsory, and now it's going to be entrenched, apparently, right? Again, no conversation. And that's the problem with the government at the moment. They are just not listening, including to councils, which know their city better than anybody else.
We'll get to Three Waters and entrenchment shortly. Thank you, Gaurav. While we're keeping it reasonably high level, Tama, the relationship between local and national.
Thanks for that question. It's an interesting question. And my observation would be this, that the National Party really believes in local democracy as well as national democracy. And right now, what we're seeing is a real strong effort by the Labor government to ram-raid and railroad legislation that compromises that. And we've seen that over the news feeds over the last week and this week. People under pressure having to go to Parliament, like David over here, and spend all night long trying to ensure that local democracy is upheld. So from my perspective, there is a really difficult relationship right now between the Labor government and the council. There's some piecemeal ideas that are thrown out there and some opportunistic ideas. For the National Party, for myself, it's absolutely fundamental to have all those different public actors working in cohesion around the key priorities of the day. The key priorities of the day in Hamilton West right now: crime, cost of living.
Georgie, I'll go. You seem to be getting it from all angles at this point, so I'll give it to you from one more angle, then give you the right of reply, if you like. Would that make sense? So, James, I'll get you now to talk about the relationship between, and then Georgie.
Sure. Don't actually disagree with a lot of what has been said. I mean, it's in a very poor state, and I think the overriding thing in Wellington is just this move towards centralisation of everything. And there is certainly an issue with consultation and all of those things. But like with Three Waters is a great example. There's others, putting however many three-story houses on a section, which not a lot of people like. So I think the best way to answer that question is actually just go talk to councils and get their opinion, because based on their reactions to all the centralisation, they're not very happy.
Thank you. And Georgie?
Yeah, the relationship is obviously vital between central government and local government. In the weekends, I do a lot of cycling along the river path and our river cycleways with my family, and that is, we're able to have that in the city because of the relationship between central and local government, and it's something that is absolutely vital in the progression of our city. What I would say is the priority is ensuring that our people have what they need to live, survive and thrive. And as far as Three Waters, I know we're going to get here soon, but at the end of the day, what our people want is safe drinking water, so when they turn on the tap, they can drink clean water. And how we get there should definitely be a conversation between central and local government. And if we continue to have these conversations, which I think are going well, and we've had a lot of feedback and a lot of changes have been made to that legislation, we'll be able to get to a point where people feel like their rates aren't spiralling out of control and that they turn on the tap and they've always got clean drinking water. And at the end of the day, for me, my priority is our people are living well.
Georgie, just on that, I hear that a lot. We've seen the ads for the mud coming out of the taps, etc. What's actually wrong with the water in Hamilton West?
I don't actually have the specifics on Hamilton West water.
But you're standing for Hamilton
West. But
I
know that, sorry?
You are standing for Hamilton West.
Oh, yeah, thank you, yes.
Cool.
So I think the issue is that across councils, the infrastructure is different. And in some councils, like in typically cities, we've got great infrastructure and great water, but in others, they're not so good. And we're going to have to spend billions of dollars over the next 30 years in order to get that infrastructure up to speed so that people do have safe drinking water. And what Three Waters is doing and what this process is doing is centralising that so that individuals and individual councils don't have their rates spiralling out of control and ending up being a huge bill on the ratepayer.
So, Georgie, what would make rates spiral out of control that wouldn't make taxes spiral out of control? Because someone's got to pay, right?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And if it's centralised, then that...
Is it free?
What, sorry?
Is it free?
So, no, the centralisation will ensure that costs are limited because we're able to look at it as a whole instead of the individual councils addressing their issues.
Okay, I can see Tama busting their coat.
This is the key issue here, is that the Labor government think they are omnipotent and omniscient from Molesworth Street. And that is not the case. No one knows everything, but for some reason, the Labor government right now thinks that it knows everything about these things. And what we are saying is actually no. Whether or not it's emissions trading scheme or anything, there's a whole bunch of communities where democracy has to live and not be told this is the solution for all your problems from Thorndon Quay.
I don't think that's happening. I think what you'll find is happening. I think what you'll find is happening is there's been consultation throughout this whole process. And what I've already alluded to is that that consultation and that feedback has been taken on board by the government and changes are being made.
Okay, go. Okay. All right, thank you.
We're getting rid of it, don't worry.
We'll dive into that consultation thing shortly. Thank you. I think you might have poked a hornet's nest there. Gaurav, you've raised your hand.
Just 2 quick points. So first is, if we are going to be cross-subsidising, it would make more sense that if this was going to happen, that Hamilton would be cross-subsidizing other smaller councils rather than the other way around. So for just looking at Hamilton West, if you were going to be that selfish, it's not going to help our ratepayers, it's not going to help our citizens. But going back to the Three Waters, when I was on the Health Select Committee, we had the Water Services Bill come through, 72 clauses in the bill. The first one of the clauses said, Tō Mātaurua can make an urgent decision, no definition of what urgent means. The second point said, the only way you can challenge it is by taking them to court. And the papers were served the night before. There were 300, 400 papers. Everybody just went through it, and I had to stop them and say, well, this makes no sense. So you're saying a common citizen has to take somebody to district court, spend $50,000 to challenge Tō Mātaurua's decision, which is urgent, and we don't even know what an urgent decision is going to be. It took a lot of conversations before they finally ended up removing those clauses. But this is the case throughout what's been happening. There's no conversation, there's no feedback, and everything, as Thomas said, everything has just been ram-raided through in Parliament.
I want to pick you up on that the consultation point, and it's a consultation point I'll ask of all of you, because you've all said you want to listen, that's the power of your position, you're going to listen, etc. With regards to Three Waters, there were over 80,000 submissions to the Select Committee in opposition to the four, not all of them, but most of them were in opposition to the four-entity model. People seem to hate it. Councils at one point or another, some sooner rather than others, I will say, hate it. Right? Are you really listening? There's one thing to consult and it's another thing to listen. So we'll go from you first, Naomi. Are the government listening? Would you listen?
I think that it's pretty clear that the current government hasn't listened in this case. And if you had a strong party sitting in the centre, with a decent chunk of the vote, then you would be able to avoid this situation in future. Because we're evidence-based and we look at the research, what works, what's working well, where does it work, where are we going wrong. In this case, it is a ridiculous system that they've set up, over-bureaucratic, too expensive. On the other hand, there is a need for investment in our water infrastructure, and so saying the status quo is okay is also not going to work.
So what's a better system from the opportunity point of view?
A good example is the local and central government funding that happened after the Christchurch earthquakes, where it's centrally funded, but the local council had the power of decision-making. And that's what we would do.
Well, look, the best example of not listening and doing these centralizations without any consultation is this building here. 16 polytechnics brought together into Te Pukanga, $110 million deficit 2 months before the thing actually launched. But now it's a mess. It's headquartered here in Hamilton West. And then we find out it was all about efficiency, it was all about providing good courses. Well, it turns out they're now cutting down all the arts and music courses because they want to save money. Then it turns out 180 people are going to lose their job. But then last week, we find out 20 people have been hired whose salaries are $200,000 each plus, right? So absolutely no understanding of why we are doing these reforms. What is the outcome we're looking for? How are we going to measure our milestones? Same thing in healthcare. You don't have to talk to people about Three Waters. Talk to the doctors, talk to the nurses, GP college, anesthetics college, surgical college about the health reforms needed in that case, but absolutely no conversation at all. Nobody can tell you the difference between a locality network and a PHO. Nobody knows, not even the health minister. I've asked him. Right? Maybe Georgie can jump on him at some point. But that's the problem, right? Health reforms are a mess, education reforms are a mess, immigration reforms are a mess, and the Three Waters is a mess as well. And there's absolutely no conversation at any point with anybody involved, all the stakeholders.
It's all sounding very positive, isn't it? Tama, consultation, Three Waters, your opinion?
No, there has been insufficient consultation. And it's sort of like, I spoke about this the other day actually, Mark, it's like my marriage. On matters of real importance and consequence, if I don't listen, the amount of times the Labour government has not listened, there's a door over there, haere rā. So you have to be really, really focused on listening to the hard-working people of Hamilton West. Channel their kōrero, channel what their aspirations are, and get there to Parliament. And at this stage, on a number of issues, not just one, not two, but skip it through 99, 100, not listening.
Georgie?
Look, I don't agree, I don't disagree with the importance of listening. That is absolutely should be the priority on all issues. There's obviously more work to do in these reforms. For me, as I've said, the focus is so people have clean drinking water, so people have good access to health and education so businesses can thrive. And that will continue to be my focus. Yes, let's continue to listen. Yes, let's continue with consultation and working together on these matters. And should I be elected, my absolute priority would be that the people of Hamilton West have their voices heard in government.
But what about the entrenchment?
So
the entrenchment of
I was
that
just about to go
legislation?
there. So with the entrenchment thing, even if the people of Hamilton West don't wish for parts of this to be entrenched so that no further government can do anything about it, what will you do?
I guess the role, right, of any member of parliament and local member of parliament is that we continue to bang on the doors of those ministers and people making those upper decisions to make sure voices are heard. And that would be exactly what I would do, would continue to have those conversations and push for the people of Hamilton West.
Thanks, Georgie. And James, you've been sitting there quietly.
So which question am I answering?
Oh, we're yeah, we'll go down the consultation one at this point.
Yeah, look, it has been an incredibly frustrating 2 years as an opposition MP, just pricking away at the government and trying to get them to listen on things. And certainly there's been very little consultation on the whole. You do occasionally get little wins here and there. Certain things in immigration I've worked on, we get a little win here and there. But I think that it's so ideological, their approach. And if they were listening, their nurses would be on the fast track to residency on the green list, right? Yeah. It just makes absolutely no sense that they're not. So there's been a lot of this in the immigration space. And Three Waters, I mean, what an absolute, how do I say this nicely, disaster that's been for local democracy. And, small entrenched provisions or not, because it's not fully entrenched, we will get rid of it. There's no question about that. We will get rid of it next year.
So, Georgie, the entrenchment discussion that's happened in the last few days, let me get this right, it's the Green Party that's put this up, has said that certain parts of this will be entrenched to 60% of any government wants to change this in the future. Am I right? Do you support that?
Look, I have to admit that I'm not all over that issue, and so I don't have an answer to that specific thing at this point. But what I will say is that I support people having access to clean drinking water and the voices of Hamilton West being heard.
Okay, so I asked for honest answers and you gave me one. Thank you, I appreciate that. Gaurav, your finger was.
I think there's never a better time to learn about Hamilton West issues than in the middle of a by-election. But the point here is the Minister of Local Government lives just round the corner in Naurua here. And you can ask Free FM how many times they contact with me and said, can we just get Minister Mahuta to come and talk to us about what's happening with Three Waters? Incredibly hard to get the minister who lives in Waikato to come and talk about this very important issue with us. And it's not about the minister, it could be health, it could be anything. We just can't get people to come and talk to the community about anything. And this is the same issue we've seen in the recent crime spree. Sandringham, somebody dies down the road from Prime Minister's house in her electorate. She's off in Hamilton electioneering here, and then in Chatham Islands the next day. And that's the problem across the board. There's absolutely no conversation before people are dying. There's no conversation after people are dying. There's no conversation before Three Waters is going to be entrenched. There will never be a conversation after it becomes entrenched.
Can I just add?
Yes, Naomi, go ahead.
I just wanted to add that we're talking about Labor here, but in the past it's been national, right? In the past it's been the other side where MPs haven't had a voice on behalf of you guys. And so that's what you get when you have two major parties. And if you look to some places in Europe which are much more democratically spread and represented, that's where we want to get you to. Kia ora.
Right. That all got reasonably heavy. We're going to change the tone. What was the last good deed you did? What was the last good deed you did? We will start with you, Gaurav.
Last good deed I did. I was at the market and I helped out somebody who was looking for some food at the Frankton market.
You helped them find food?
No, they were begging for money and food. So.
Oh, I see. So you gave someone money for food. Okay. Thank you. Tama?
Yeah, this morning I was just down the road there on Greenwood Street. There's a whole bunch of rubbish all over the place, so I decided to take it upon myself and... There
wasn't Naomi's signs?
What was that?
It wasn't Naomi's signs either?
No, that's not rubbish, that's propaganda. But I went out and picked up some rubbish and found a couple of things that I could reuse, reusers, or regifters is what I'd call them.
So you re-gifted some rubbish you found on the street?
Well, it's rubbish to some people, but it's a treasure to others.
Do you want to tell us what that rubbish was?
Oh, some clothes.
You found some clothes on the street? Yep. Were they on a person?
Not when I picked them up, but they might be now.
So where did you take them?
Well, I've put them away in a nice place and made sure they go to the right person.
And what was that nice place?
What's that?
What was that nice place?
Oh, if you come in my car later, I can show you.
Thank you. Georgie, I think I've gone far enough with that one. Georgie.
Yeah, I think one of the most substantial things that I've done this year that I'm really proud of is ensuring that my business pays all our employee the living wage. So we were the first gym in New Zealand to be living wage accredited, and you know, great achievement, but also shows how much work we still need to do in this country. But just being able to ensure that all my employees have got a decent wage has been a really important thing for me.
And thank you. And James, what was yours?
Well, I think about how tricky this year's been at the border and a lot of the cases helping reunite families with very difficult immigration situations. And there was one in particular who, obviously won't go into too many personal details here, but there was one in particular who had issues with not just the border and their visa status, but also with the courts in Oranga Tamariki. So there was more dynamics to that. And I think just working through those systems and actually you'll you'll have a situation where you think, oh, this is not going to work. I'm not going to get a victory out of this, but then it happens. Somehow the pieces come together. So just helping people in those situations has been very rewarding.
Can you help people as an opposition MP?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you put pressure on the government. You can, write to the minister if you want, write to the minister. You can, ask questions in the House, that sort of thing. But it does give you sort of some extra sort of clout to hit them up on things like this.
Okay, thank you very much. Would you agree with that, Gaurav? You can help people as an opposition MP.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously you do have to work with the ministers and stuff, and if they're trying to stop you from getting work done, then it is on them, unfortunately, for preventing people of any electorate getting work done. But I'm sure, MPs all across the board, whether they are an ACT MP, a Green MP, or a National MP, do get work done for their constituents, because that's how it is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, the Waikato Chamber is advocating for the Cambridge to Pariri Road. Oh, you've done a good deed.
I've done two.
My apologies, I've missed your good deed.
That's all right.
Sorry about that.
Long term, I set up a charity this year called STEM Curiosity, taking sensory science into schools, and we've done 10,000 children despite the red light setting at the start. And shorter term, I think I've convinced my children this year to take one new and everything else reused presents as a Christmas present. So getting them across that line was a big good deed.
Worth waiting for. Thank you very much.
I thought you said it was the last good thing you did, because I would have mentioned leaving the Labour Party would be one of the ones. But sorry,
I left it.
I wasn't sure on the timeline. I didn't realise.
That was there waiting for you.
Good deed for who?
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people would be happy with that.
So Waikato Chamber of Commerce is advocating for the Southern Links, in particular the Cambridge to Pariri extension of the expressway. Recently there have been several road deaths. The response has been to lower the speed limit on, is it 500 or 1,000 k's of road nationwide? Twofold question. The first one of those questions is, do you support the continuation of the expressway to Pariri? And secondly, do you support rail travel? Rail travel and the extension of the expressway. So there we go, we'll start from this end, James, and we'll work our way through.
Yep. Look, critical infrastructure like roading, fully supportive of. There's got to be good ways to fund it and long-term plans to fund it, and we've got policy around how to do that from central government and local and that sort of thing over a long period of time. So if we can take the politics out of it, yep, totally in favour of roading. And again, rail is one of these things where if something stands up, it's got a good business case, can actually get funding. If we can get some PPPs in there, that'll be even better, so long as it's cost effective. So yep, all power to rail if it can pay for it somehow.
Thank you. Georgie.
Yeah, Labor's taking a multimodal approach to transport, and you would have seen that in our investment in our expressway, which Tama made sure he mentioned last time we were in a debate that National started that, and I will acknowledge that that was a national initiative that Labor carried on, so we can work together on some things, and that's great. But we're also investing in our cycling and our public transport across the city, and because of that multimodal approach, so that we can ensure that transport is accessible to everyone, and also addressing climate change and looking at alternatives. That hasn't been a priority for the government, but there's absolutely no reason. I love the expressway, it's great, and so there's absolutely no reason why that can't be something that comes up in the future.
So you would express, you would support it?
I support a multimodal approach, which includes potential extension of that expressway, but also having safe cycleways and good public transport.
So-
and to just address the train,
Yeah.
the train one, I think the Tahuia has been a great initiative, and it's really picked up recently. You would have seen they've just started the Saturday routes, which I think is cool because its families can go to Auckland for the day if they want to. And if you look at the numbers on that, that's really increasing. And I think we've got to start somewhere with public transport. It is something we need to address. Climate change is happening whether we like it or not, and we need to look at other alternative options. Tahuia is one of the pieces in the puzzle in addressing that and ensuring we've got lots of ways for people to get around the country.
Tama. Twofold question. One, do you support the extension of the expressway to Pairere? And secondly, do you support rail travel?
Kia ora. Yeah, no, thank you. Well, National Party prides ourselves as being the party of infrastructure for the country, and I'm pleased that Georgie has acknowledged the National Party's mahi or work to get the Waikato Expressway and other roads of national significance underway. So Cambridge to Piarere.
Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, Cambridge to Piarere, yes, tick. And if it was me, I'd be advocating for Piarere to Tito and a ring road around Tito as well, because when you drive down that way, you can spend an hour trying to get past the BP. So definitely supportive of that, and the caucus has committed to that in the past. The other item...
Tell you what, hold on for a wee second. We'll give you that other microphone there. And my apologies for the poor pronunciation.
I no longer feel like an insect. Rail travel, look, freight, definitely, and freight is one of the biggest contributors to the wealth of the country, particularly with Waikato and Hamilton, what I was involved in helping rezone Ruakura. That's going to be absolutely phenomenal, and I wanted to mihi out to those people from Tainui and other entities who have helped support that. Rail travel for people, that has to be, like James said, has to be really interrogated whether or not it can stand on its own 2 feet. And if it can't stand on its own 2 feet, you ask the question, well, why would we continue to support it? And that's a question to be answered.
Can I just follow that up with one question? Yes, there is no railway, passenger rail around the world that stands on its own 2 feet initially. How long would you wait before it could stand on its feet?
Yeah, well, as someone that's been involved in building and interrogating infrastructure in my time at the Superannuation Fund, I've seen the BCRs that go with that motorway out there, the expressway, take rail travel from Auckland to Hamilton under pressure. The numbers simply aren't there. So you have to think, what are there other reasons to justify that? But we run it through an investment lens in the first instance, as well as a people lens.
All right, I'm just going to hold you on there just a little bit longer than I asked you for the clothing questions. But at this point, you must have some idea. Would you support the continuation of Tahuia?
I think at this stage, what I'm really focused on is what the people of Hamilton West are really telling me, which is crime and cost of living. Those are the key issues, rather than a train set up and down from Auckland to Hamilton, or a train set from Auckland City to the Auckland Airport, which is costing an inordinate amount of money, 30 billion. I'd love to have some of those billions in Hamilton West, thank you.
Thank you very much. Gaurav. The extension of the expressway to can you please? Piarere, thank you, guide me on that. And the, do you support rail travel?
Sure. So first, I'm just going to mention a few things which weren't mentioned. Both James and Tama haven't been on the train because this question was asked in Q&A. So we have a sitting member of parliament from Hamilton who doesn't have much of an opinion on the train and would probably do another working group like the Labour Party before they decide on it, has never been on the train. And we've got another member from the National Party who's a candidate from Auckland, used to work for DGH but hasn't travelled on the train here, okay? And then we have somebody who's talked about climate change but missed the last debate because they travelled to Wellington to do phone calls from Hamilton. It's important.
That's not why I went to Wellington.
I travelled on the National Expressway. Kia ora.
Yep.
I went to Wellington.
I will answer my questions.
Yeah, but Gaurav, I haven't used the crematorium, but I still support that.
So I'll answer my questions, but it's important to understand the context of it, right? Like if you're commenting on it, you should have been able to travel on the train. Love the train, great idea. We need to encourage people to use more of it, but after the 5-year trial, if people are still not using it, then there is a point where you have to say, well, look, we've done our best to provide this service. Are you going to use it or not? In terms of the motorway, I acknowledge both Labour and National for doing that, and we do need to extend it further because, we need to extend our infrastructure further. So on both the accounts, I'm happy to support.
Thank you very much. And Naomi.
Kia ora. So the Opportunities Party supports the shift towards alternative modes of transport. However, we want them to run efficiently and with the best process improvement as possible. What I will say on the infrastructure, it's good to hear National saying that they would run everything through a transparent business case, because frankly in the past that hasn't happened. It's been knock on your mate's door down in Parliament and say, I would like this please. So the Opportunities Party stands for every infrastructure decision to be run through a transparent business case on your behalf that considers the economy, the environment and social issues. So that's us.
Thank you, Naomi. All right, we'll go from you back this way. What will you do to improve easy and safe access around New Zealand then?
Easy and safe access?
Around Aotearoa, in particular Hamilton West.
In terms of safety,
realising that your
safety?
limitations are, you've only got a couple of roads you can work with, but with transport, easy access and safe access, what is your position? What will you do to improve that in the lot of New Zealanders?
So Te Huia, which we've just spoken about, is one of the access points. We would support extending that into the city to make it easier for people to commute. We want to help people to shift out of their cars, avoid, shift, improve around energy efficiency. So we want to help people get out of their cars, which will make things easier and safer in the long term.
Correct.
Look, I'm all for all multimodal shift as well. Obviously, build the motorways, get the public transport going, because it is important that we have an option with train. We also have options with long distance buses. But the biggest thing that I'm hearing from people is it's always that last mile which stops people from using public transport. For me to go and take Te Huia, I've actually book a cab or try to get on a scooter or take my car there. And the Hamilton City Council has done a really good job with the new FlexiBus. And that's the sort of thing we should be investing in, because we need those last mile connections so that people can actually feel more welcomed into using those options that are already available while investing across the board for those transports.
Thank you. Thank you. Tama? What would you do to...
Good applause there, Gaurav. Look, rather than spending tens of millions of dollars looking at a cycleway over the Auckland Harbour, I'd actually fix the potholes that are around our city. That'd be a good start, so people can travel safely around the city and over the Kaimai Ranges. And when I left Auckland recently,
that's Kaimai Range, not Kaimai Ranges.
Kaimai Range.
Range, yeah.
Thank you. Well, 1 for 1, eh? I'll get you later. When I said farewell to Gaurav's school, Auckland Grammar, to return to Hamilton, what I've found is that there's actually some real challenging roads just out on the Te Rapa bypass. There's potholes everywhere, and we need to really actually focus on the things that need to be done today, not some ideology and a press announcement for 20 years in the future. One thing that we had was the roads of national significance basically cancelled by the Labour government. That's the sort of kaupapa or focus that the National Party will bring when we come back into government next year.
Georgie, what will you do in your power to increase the lot of access and safe access?
Yeah, we're talking about what needs to be done today and not in 20 years. And what needs to be done today is that we need to address climate change, and we need to do it now. In 20 years' time, we don't have roads and we don't have people that are thriving. We've got a serious issue with serious weather concerns. So I agree our roads need to be really good, but as I've already mentioned, so does all of our transport. It needs to be accessible to everybody, and we need to make sure that in moving forward with our transport system, which is a huge chunk of the emissions that we create in this country, we're looking at all our options to ensure we're well covered and in a good position to address climate change.
Thank you, Georgie. And James.
Yeah, well, we touched on a few things there, but I'll just say, like, kind of repeat the answer I gave before around having these, taking the politics out of it, getting as much investment as we can as possible for these sorts of projects, but importantly, just making sure we're investing in things that people actually want and use, not things that they're going to cost a lot of money and people won't use them. So look, yeah, I'm all for the stuff, all for developing it, get the politics out of it, get long-term plans happening. That doesn't mean they're happening in 30 years' time, that means they're happening from today as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, one last topical question. The RNZ, and I acknowledge Andrew McRae here, and I'm asking because he's too scared to, the RNZ-TVNZ merger. Good idea, dumb idea, what will it do? We'll start with you from this end, James, moving to that end.
It's a terrible idea. The issue is, I mean, if anybody's been watching Parliament TV and watching Willie Jackson answer questions about this thing, it's just another one of these dodgy Trojan horses that he comes up with, or the Labor Party likes to come up with, where they'll pitch one thing, like, with Three Waters it's all about water quality, but actually it's about co-governance. And we get this with the merger as well as, I think, just watch Parliament TV and see him answer this stuff, because when we ask him, why is this going to be so expensive, have you done a business case for it? He says, it doesn't need a business case, we haven't done that. We're just going to spend $400 million combining two entities so that he can get his favourite programming on there, whatever that happens to be. So yeah, in a nutshell, it's a bad idea.
Thank you. I will jump across to Naomi, because I have a feeling your answer will be similar.
Sorry, me?
RNZ-TVNZ merger.
The Opportunities Party, being a party of evidence, really supports in-depth critical journalism. And I would say that we get that from RNZ, and since the charter got taken away from TVNZ, less of that has been happening. So we would love to bring back in-depth critical journalism, providing you guys with an unbiased account from which you can make your own decisions.
Georgie, RNZ-TVNZ.
Look, my focus is on the people of Hamilton West and ensuring, as I've said, that their issues are heard front and centre. And when I'm talking to communities, the issues they're talking about is the cost of living, being safe in their communities, and getting good education and health. And that is absolutely my focus. The RNZ and TVNZ merger is an issue, but to me it's a minor issue, and it's not at all what my focus is when we're spending billions of dollars on other things in our communities.
Okay, go ahead.
Don't you love it when the government candidate says that it's not an issue to merge and spend $350 million on a pet project? Oh, this is crazy. I mean, it's outrageous that the government wants a $350 million merger, and the candidate, who potentially could be a member of parliament, doesn't think it's an important issue, but the government does. And the one way to describe this whole merger, it's a solution looking for a problem, right? There is absolutely no need to go through $350 million pet project when there is a cost of living crisis. Give that money away to all the businesses that are suffering from crime. $6 million for 500 businesses where somebody's lost their life, and there's a ram raid every day, and we're spending $350 million on a merger of two organizations, which nobody even watches these days. Most people are watching Netflix and they're using Facebook and other things, and we're going to spend $350 million just on the merger.
Can I respond to that, please?
Yep. I'll go with Tama and then your response, okay? All right, Tama.
Yeah, with that sort of answer, you can come in behind me and join my team, mate.
So you're back on blue now, are you? Right, okay.
RNZ-TVNZ merger, no. 370, Swedish rounding, 400, James. No. Actually, we've got more important issues that New Zealanders and the people of Hamilton West are facing right now to be spending on a pet project, which I would call Mickey Kiore, Mickey Mouse. Focus on the key issues that are affecting people today: security, crime, cost of living.
Thank you. And Georgie, you want to respond?
Yeah. We've talked tonight a lot about the importance of having an MP in Hamilton West who can represent the issues of Hamilton West in Parliament. And I think to all of us, that's a really important aspect of this, and that's why we're here, and that's why democracy exists. I'm saying that to address what Gaurav has said about my focus not being on the merger. And no, my focus is not on the merger. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying that people and government shouldn't be really careful about where they spend their money. Of course they should, but for me, as a local person in Hamilton, my main focus is no one's talking to me in the community about the TVNZ merger. People are talking to me in the communities about the cost of living and being safe in their communities.
Following your logic, can we assume you'd say it's a dumb idea if your constituents aren't saying anything?
Careful.
Yeah. Look, I don't think it's a dumb idea, no.
Okay, thank you. We got there. Right. Okay, I haven't really delved into crime, simply because you've been talking nothing but crime for the last few days. Obviously, it's desperate. I will go there just briefly. It's an icky area. We all know it's horrible. We all would love to solve it tomorrow. We've all been affected by it. Everyone in this room has been affected by it. Okay. The answers I can probably predict. Georgie, you'll come out and say that ram rates have gone down. Tama, you'll say we've got a 4-point plan. James, you'll say, well, that was half of our plan anyway. Is there anything different you three could add to that?
Well, I would also add to that bringing back 3 strikes.
Okay.
And, the reality... It was interesting when the Prime Minister said that, they haven't reduced anything with sentencing and, they haven't gone softer on this stuff. And, the reality is aggravated burglary was a strike offence. And so by abolishing that, there was another tool in the toolkit to actually get some serious consequences. It's now gone. So that was a little bit misleading. So certainly that.
Georgie, the National have come out and said we would bring back military-style boot camps along with talking with the community. And I guess in National's defence, the other part of that policy has kind of drifted under the wayside. In other words, it was just focusing on these military camps. Do they work? Could they work?
Yeah, so I'm a former teacher at a low decile high school, and the thing about this issue is that every day I would see kids in my classes who came from difficult backgrounds. And the point I'm trying to make here is that, yes, this is a policing issue, and we do need to ensure we're enforcing our law and people are being held accountable for these crimes. You'll know that in Hamilton, 1,200 people have been prosecuted associated with ram raids, and 200 people have been arrested. So yes, we need to do that, but also we need to take a community approach, and we need wraparound services so that these people aren't getting to the point where they're feeling like they need to commit these crimes in the first place. In regards to the boot camp, we've been talking about this for a bit, and you'll know that this has already been tried by National in the last government, and 85% of people reoffended. We know it's not effective, and it's not a good solution. One of the things, just before Tama picks up his microphone, he's poised, is that you would have seen the Prime Minister's announcement today about fog cannons being available for dairies across the country. That's a $4,000 subsidy per dairy across the country. And the evidence shows that these actually work, that offenders, if they know there is a fog cannon installed, they're much less likely to attack. And to me, that's one way that we can ensure that our communities continue to feel like they are safe.
Georgie, what is your confidence level, having seen the $6 million was announced quite some time ago, and then for quite some time there was nothing enacted. Then the bollards came up. By the time the bollards came up, ram raids had stopped and they were smashing and grabbing anyway. What is your confidence that these fog cannon subsidies are going to be rolled out in time to be effective? Yeah,
so you'll know that 13% of ram raids in this country occurred in Hamilton, and 15% of the Crime Prevention Fund has been allocated so far to Hamilton. So we can see that it is happening. I was actually in a dairy in Aberdeen just the other day talking to the owner there, who had just been on the phone to police and was having his bollards installed in the next couple of weeks. Look, this is happening, but we need to continue. You know, the Sandringham news in the weekend was absolutely devastating to all of us, and we just don't want that ever happening, and we need to continue to work to ensure that these things are not happening and communities continue to be safe. And so what I advocate for is that we will... I'm distracted by this, sorry. What I advocate for is us continuing to support people, continue to roll out these initiatives so our communities feel safe and that people are being held to account if they are committing these crimes.
Thank you, Georgie. Tama.
Look, the hard-working people of Hamilton West cannot rely on announcements based on kindness. We just can't. If you talk to Praveen down at Ehrlich Ave, the guy that runs the liquor store down there, 5 times in 5 days, burgled, ram-raided, robbed. Around the corner, Mihia, burgled, ram-raided. Ash up at the Flagstaff Super Valley, just outside our electorate, 12 times in 12 months. Matt Royal at Sports Safari, you all know the story, sleeps in his shop with a bat waiting for people to come in so he can knock them. This is the reality of life for small, medium business owners in Hamilton West, and it needs to stop. You can't rely on kindness to deal with actions like what we're seeing. Actions have to result in consequences, and that's why the National Party, our leader Chris Luxon, made this announcement to take action for those repeat serial young offenders. Now, there's a difference between opinions and facts, and you're entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And the fact is that the military academies that were under the John Key, Bill English-led government did have a really, really good impact on reducing serious crime amongst those people, 50% reduction in serious offences.
Thank you. Gaurav. Just before you answer, I do have to acknowledge that James has to shoot away for a Wellington flight in about 10 minutes' time, is that right?
A bit more time, yeah.
So,
All that railroading of legislation through there, mate. Off you go.
Sure. So, the first thing is, as a doctor, right, like if you want to treat somebody, first thing you have to do is diagnose it, and the patient needs to acknowledge, and we all need to work together and agree there is a problem. The problem here is, every time something happens, the Prime Minister and the government says, well, actually, there is no crime. Crime's gone down. We just don't even want to talk about it. The first thing the government needs to do is acknowledge that the crime is on the rise, ram rates are on the rise, people's lives are at risk, and people are feeling unsafe. Not just the shopkeepers, we're talking to people who are saying, I don't let my family out after 7 o'clock at night because I'm just worried they're going to get attacked down the road. So the first thing is acknowledging that there is a problem. That's how you find a solution. The next thing is allocating money doesn't mean the outcome will be achieved. Henry Bennett Centre, the mental health unit, a lot of money was allocated, still waiting for it. I used to be a Labour candidate, I became a Labour MP, I'm now out of that. I'm an independent person now. We're still waiting for that money allocated to actually show something, right? So just allocating money won't work. Now, I don't know if people have actually read today's announcement. What it talks about is the $4,000 for fog cannons. Those fog cannons are not going to be installed until the second half of next year, right? You know how many crime rates have happened? When I asked the Prime Minister in Parliament and said, will you pay for the insurances of those businesses which are getting affected? Because a lot of businesses are saying, we're not getting insurances anymore. One person in Puketi lost his insurance. The second company went from charging $5,000 to $19,000 insurance. And then the government said, well, no, we're not going to pay for that. Right? In that time alone, when the government promised $6 million for 500 businesses, and the Prime Minister said, I'm really proud of it, 2 hours after I'd asked the question, it turns out 0 businesses at that point had been actually given that money. It was 6 months after the announcement. 129 ram raids had happened in that time. By the time those fog cannons go up next year, there'll be like another 400 ram raids. What's the point of it?
What's your solution?
So the first problem is, why aren't the parents being held accountable? We're talking to somebody in Flagstaff, a 10-year-old breaks into somebody's house at 3 o'clock at night. Who's responsible for the child? If it's not the parents, there has to be a guardian, orang tamariki, somebody has to be responsible for the child, right? You don't just have children out of nowhere, nobody's holding them accountable, so the parents have to be accountable. The second point is, something needs to be done in terms of supporting the businesses who are getting ram raided. Somebody needs to make sure that their insurances are paid for after all of this, and the victims are not blamed, because what we're doing is, we're basically saying to people, you're the victim, it's your problem, put yourself in a prison, put the bollards out there, put all these fences and everything in there, rather than the culprits. Now, in terms of training people, I think boot camps are good, but not military boot camps. What I don't want is 12 months later, these 14-year-old, 15-year-olds who are already, on the wrong side of things, better trained to beat the crap out of everybody else, right? But you can send them. There's so many other initiatives around town, right? You can send them to church groups who are doing a lot of good work.
Two things are happening here. You're running out of breath and your voice is getting so high only a dog can hear it.
Sorry. I am.
And secondly,
we're all passionate about this.
If Tama frowns anymore, his eyebrows are going to be below his chin. So, Tama,
hang on.
Yeah, I'll give you the right.
So I'm just saying, boot camps in a way that they're not military-style boot camps. and also community service through church groups, through organizations, Progress to Health, you work with them. They do a lot of good work. Those sort of places where people learn about community service, they learn about the impact their actions are having on the community. That's the sort of stuff we need.
Thank you, Gaurav. Tama.
Kia ora, Gaurav. Look, right now we've got a bunch of young people and opportunists that are really at the core of the problem, the core of the challenge in Hamilton West. And we can't let them continue to live in the community right now because they'll keep on perpetuating that. What we need is to channel them into a better pathway in collaboration and partnership with community groups and church groups that are proven performers in this space. And that's the part of the announcement that gets washed out in the press and the media. Actually, it's not military and 3,000 press-ups in a day in the snow in Waiodu. It's more than that. It's actually involving church groups, community groups and others to help those folks go beyond 12 months. They will be involved beyond 12 months for another 12 months or more to make sure those young people on the path. We will not give up on young people, but we can't have them ram-raiding people or breaking and entering and robbing people. We will not give up on them, but we need to show that actions lead to consequences.
Thank you. And Naomi.
Thank you. So what the Opportunity Party is saying in this space is that if anybody tries to give you a one-liner PR kind of solution to this problem, they're simply lying to you. Because this isn't an issue with the individual ram raiders. This is an issue with our society. And we need to take a long, hard look at the society we are creating. And the Opportunities Party wants to rebalance the system so that everybody gets an opportunity to thrive. In terms of this ram raid situation that we've got going on at the moment, which is terrible for businesses, and I have full empathy for everybody who is in this situation. What we haven't talked about tonight is the reduction in funding under the national government and continued by Labor for frontline workers and youth workers, those people in the communities at the coalface. And if we don't address this lack of funding, we're going to continue with this problem going forward. So we need to rebalance the system, we need to change the status quo, and we need to get some voices there in the middle that can hold these guys to account. Kia ora.
Thank you. All right, we've had a good whack at that, everybody. I'm going to wrap up with one light question before James goes. I'm not going to let you off this one, James. And then we will open the floor for a few questions. I'll lay down the rules and give you all the warnings about no statements and that shortly. James, I would like you to say something nice about Georgie.
Oh. James has lots of nice things to say about me.
No, Georgie, your turn will come. No prompting, please.
She was, what would you call it? She was a great friend in the study group back at Waikato Law School. Nice. Okay, we'll roll with that. Are you happy with that one?
Yes.
Georgie, something nice about Gaurav.
Oh, Gaurav. I was planning my nice one about Tama.
I know.
I have to rethink now.
Or it's the same.
A nice thing about Gaurav, look, it's always important to stand up for what you believe in, and that applies to everybody here.
Thank you. Nice answer. Tama, something nice about Georgie. No, we've done Georgie.
This is my second one.
That is too. Hang on a minute. No, that's something nice about Naomi.
Look, I've appreciated I've never met Naomi before, but I appreciate her focus on data-driven, evidence-based solutions. And I wanted to acknowledge you for that. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. And Gaurav, something nice about Tama, please.
Sure. Sorry, I was waiting for the mic. I realised I've got
Yeah,
one.
no, I was just shaking things up a bit.
Look, two things about Tama that I really like. One is his shirts, great shirts, right? And not the one today, but the ones before. And the other one is that te reo is really great. I've tried to learn te reo. I spent a year at Unitec. I'm really terrible at learning languages. I tried to learn Spanish really bad, but he speaks really well te reo, and that's something to be appreciated.
Thank you very much. Well done, guys. That was... and Naomi, something nice about me. No, just kidding.
James!
Something nice about James, please.
Oh, I can't miss out James. Again, first time I've kind of met James. Haven't actually shook your hand yet, James, but that might come. But I think he was on a debate with us the other night and spoke really well and represented his party and the policies very well as well.
Thank you. Now, candidates, you will always be forever bonded by this experience. Having gone through a couple of local body elections, the candidates will agree. You form a bit of a bond with all the other candidates because you're all going through this this arduous process together, and you're all putting yourselves out there, so I applaud you for that. Thank you for that. We will open up to the floor for questions. James, we do appreciate you will have to shoot away if you can say you can.
I'll take one to kick off.
Okay, yeah, does someone have a question of James? Now we'll get Liam, you've got the microphone there. A question of James, first of all, if anyone has one. This might be easier for you than you think, James.
It's been a great letdown.
Very easy. No, there we have a question from Ricky over here.
James, what would you do differently when you're actually in government next year with National compared to what you've been talking about, what you're doing this year?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's an interesting question. I mean, as an opposition MP, and I know Gaurav's had a hard time being a Labor backbencher, as an opposition MP, you can call out the government and dig into things and create policy or develop policies, ask questions. That stuff's all really important. Come next year, as I was saying before, it depends, what kind of arrangement, assuming National and ACT can form a coalition or confidence and supply after next election. But it's a case of actually making these policies a reality. Whether that's through the arrangements, through bills, etc. It just gets a lot more real, basically.
Thank you, James. And if you have to sneak out, that's absolutely cool. We understand. Mano, you had a question. Mano, behind you, sir. Just take a seat, sir. We'll get to you soon. Yep, and go Mano, and then to your good self, ma'am, at the back, and then to you, sir. Will be a question or a statement.
I just like to ask the candidates who are standing for Hamilton West. Where do you all work, and where do you all live, and how many community police outlets have been opened by the Labour government?
That's an interestingly framed question. So where do you work, where do you live, and how many community police stations are there where you live? Is that right? Okay. No. All right, we'll start with you, Naomi.
I've been working at the University of Waikato, but like Tama, I gave up the job to pursue this opportunity on behalf of the Opportunities Party. I have been working for STEM Curiosity, my charity as well, which is all over Hamilton. I live just outside the city boundary, just past Temple View, and I don't have any police near me.
Thank you, madam. Gaurav, where do you live? What's your address?
I live in Frankton. My address is on all my billboards. I used to work at Avalon Medical Centre in Norton, and I see quite a few of my patients in the community, and including here. I thought your question was how many community centres Labour's opened. What did you say?
Police, how many police?
Close to where we live, right? Well, there are no community police stations, unfortunately, in any part of Hamilton. All we've got is the central police station, but they are working on putting police officers in different parts of town. Yeah.
Thank you. Tama, where do you live, work, and...
I've been working and running a tribe in Auckland, property, aquaculture, tourism and community events. I've resigned from that role and returned to Hamilton to live. I'm living in the Hamilton West electorate right now on the south side. Gaurav comes and has green tea with me now and again. And as Gaurav mentioned, in terms of the community police, nada. Kia ora.
Georgie.
Kia ora. So I'm the CE of the IECA, which is the Independent Schools Education Association, and I'm also a business owner, as we've spoken about, of a body fit training based in Te Amutu. I live in Hamilton East, just near Boys High School, and the closest police station to me would be the central one just across the river.
Thank you. And James.
I feel like I couldn't run away after a question been asked. Live in Hamilton. I'm a member of Parliament, and the only vague memory I have many years ago of a community police station was around Flagstaff. That's the one that was closest to my house, and that's long gone.
Thank you. And ma'am at the back there.
Kia ora tātou, Parikāpia McLean here on behalf of Waikato Tainui. My question to each of the panellists is, in the same vein as relationships with local government, I'd like to understand from all of you what you intend to do in terms of working to support the aspirations of the iwi here, given that we are significant intergenerational investors, we have significant assets, we have significant partnerships with local authorities, with businesses and so on. So be interested to hear what you've said. And also there was a comment made before about co-governance. Again, given our river settlement, we've been part of the co-governance arrangements, working alongside local authorities and others who have an interest in restoring and protecting the well-being of the river.
Right, reasonably broad. So if I can get them to speak in general terms about the relationship between iwi and central government, go.
So on co-governance, I think it's pretty clear to say that co-governance is already here. It's working in some very good examples. For example, the Waikato River Authority, also a project that I was recently involved in up at the university. Our advisory board has co-governance and that works really well. So I don't think we need to be worried or scared about what co-governance isn't. And it's already here. It's a partnership. It's an opportunity for everybody at the table to have equal decision making, and I think it's a really important issue, and so that would be something that I would support and undertake. Kotahitanga is one of my core values, so strength and unity is important to me.
Gaurav, co-governance, relationship with iwi.
Yeah, kia ora. So first thing is, having been the local MP recently, I have a very good working relationships. I haven't had any green tea with my friend Tama here, but I've had a lot with with Chris Joblin, and we've been involved, whether it's the inland port or the ACC buildings or what's happening at the university, NIWA. We've been there at every aspect, helping with the relationship between the government and the local iwi as well. And we'll continue to work with that. In terms of co-governance, and we got asked this question at another debate recently, the biggest problem at the moment is everybody's different definition of co-governance is very different. And this is part of the problem why there is a lot of outrage out there, because people they have very different ideas. Some people go, oh, well, somebody's going to take over everything and nobody else is going to have a job, or somebody's going to do this and not going to do that. And that's part of the problem, is because even the bills, if you look at the Three Waters stuff, doesn't really define very well what is going on in terms of co-governance. So I'm all in favor of working with the iwi. Tainui is one of the biggest owner of land as well in here, and we have to work with our stakeholders in that partnership. Thank you.
Tama.
Kia ora, pare, ngā mihi ki a koe. I had the great privilege of working for Waikato Tainui and Tainui Group Holdings for 7 years, and to help support the team to realise the aspiration of the iwi kia pua wai mai ngā whakaaro o te iwi. So I have some in-depth knowledge, and my children, of course, are also Waikato Tainui and Maniapoto. I always say the Maniapoto as well. So I have a very close connection to the iwi and the aspirations of Waikato Tainui. Co-governance over public services, we do not agree with. So the Māori Health Authority, Three Waters, no, do not agree, do not support.
Where's the line, Tama? Where's
treaty
the line?
settlements, like the Waikato River Settlement and the existent Waikato River Authority, yes, we tautoko that, we support that. However, when there are issues of need, absolute need, as we all know, such as in health, we will work closely with iwi, as we have done in the past, to deliver on the needs. And as you all know, there are some pretty disproportionate statistics in the health and education space, and would work with and look to, as suitable, devolution is what you might describe it as, to work with iwi to deliver on needs. We'll absolutely do that. The other thing with Waikato Tainui, as I know, is that there are several outstanding settlements that have to be resolved. And some of you may know that the National Party has a far improved and better record than any other party in government on delivering on treaty settlements. Kia ora.
Thank you. And Georgie, co-governance, relationship with iwi.
Yeah, kia ora, and an acknowledgement to Waikato Tainui and the tangata whenua here today. This is an issue that is a really personal and important to me. So I whakapapa Ngāti Tūwharetoa, but I grew up Pākehā, so my journey into Te Ao Māori has been as an adult. And as I mentioned, I started my career as a high school teacher, and in that experience, what I saw that was so often it was the Māori students who were underachieving in the education system. And from that point and throughout my career, it has always been a priority of mine to honour te tiriti o Waitangi and ensure that the government and me personally, I guess, works with Māori in order to honour that partnership in moving forward in this country.
Thank you. We have room for one more question, I think, and then we'll wrap it up. And if you do have questions, you can fire it away at the members themselves, or the wannabe members themselves afterwards. Everyone's pointing at Liam, and there's a lady over there who was before you. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We will get, ma'am over there, we'll get you to ask your question in the green, and I'm a softie, I'll go with you after that, Liam, all right? Okay. Whew. Decisive.
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi mahana, ko renei ahau. I had a lot of facts to say, but I've had to alter what I wanted to say. I wonder, do you people really understand how dreadful it can be in a classroom today? When people are dealing with mental health patients, they use force. When the police are dealing with people who don't listen, they use force. Some of them 3 or 4 on to 1. The poor teacher is sworn at, is kicked and treated so badly sometimes. Why can't the teacher have one physical way to control somebody who is out of control? Okay. Arm up the back, or a halt or something. Do you know in a classroom when someone is going berserk, they're throwing the chairs around the place, and the poor teacher has to get all the 32 children who are behaving, stand them up.
All right. We get the guts of the question. Would you support teachers having some form of, or being allowed to have some form of physical restraint over kids?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate it. Georgie.
My whole career has been in education and employment, so I understand the strains that are on our education system and our teachers. To answer the question bluntly, no, I do not. I do not support teachers being able to use physically in the classroom. But what I do support is really good education system, and that starts with ensuring that we look after our teachers and that they have pay and conditions that support them so that they are able to teach effectively.
Tama.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you for that question. Look, the National Party is really focused on getting kids back to school. Right now, there's a whole bunch of kids that actually don't go to school. PlayStation in the morning and robbing someone in the afternoon. Okay? So the notion that we would use unreasonable force as teachers in the classroom, I think, don't support that, not into that. However, there are occasions when you have to use force to protect other kids, right? And you have to actually restrain someone, but teachers are often not trained really well in that. What we would say is that if you look at what we did under the previous government, where we had charter schools, and they were going okay, and then because of ideology they were booted to the sideline, we say let's start and look at those incentives for teachers in schools to operate in a way that you can actually address some of those issues. Vanguard Military School in Auckland, absolutely awesome. Got it.
Thank you. Gaurav.
So recently the government came out with the Mental Health Assessment Compulsory Treatment Bill, and one of the things that was changed was that you were able to restrain people who had mental health issues. We're just talking about people at hospital, not at school. So there are instances where you might need to hold somebody up, and there needs to be a provision in the legislation just to be able to give somebody that power. So as Thomas said, and I'm very much in favor of that, we need to get kids back to school. We obviously need to treat them well, and I don't know if putting an ankle bracelet is the best idea, but we do need to have provision in law where if it is needed in worst cases, in extreme cases, that it is available, as has been done in the mental health cases as well now at the institutions.
And Naomi.
Thank you for the question, and the answers need to be honest. So yeah, I'm the education spokesperson for the Opportunities Party, and I wouldn't support force being used against children, but what I would support is a couple of things. Number one is recognising that these issues start in the early years before these kids even get to school. Now, I wrote a policy for the Opportunities Party on the early years learning. It was actually more like a thesis. It's like 60 pages, more a thesis than a policy, but very research-based. policy and was considered by people like Nathan Wallace, who's a neuroscience educator, to be world leading. And that's where we need to focus our attention in those early years, so that when they get to school, they're socially and emotionally settled enough and ready to learn. And there's no point sending them all back to school to then have more kids who are going to throw chairs at teachers. One-liner solutions to these problems is not the answer. We need to look at the society we're creating.
Thank you. And last question for the night, we'll give it down to Liam, young gentleman down here.
I know my question. What do you think about cycling, and what do you think of the new cycling bridge?
So what do you think about cycling? Sorry, Liam, didn't catch the last bit, bud.
And the cycling bridge.
Oh, the walking cycling bridge across the river that's just been partially funded. Yep. Georgie.
I'll go first. Yeah, sure. I've talked about cycling multiple times this evening. I love cycling. I love cycling with my kids in the weekend. I love our river path. Everyone I talk to.
So could you please give NZTA a bit of a rocket, because it's real hard to get the money out of the guys.
Yeah, everyone I talk to in the community says that river path is one of their favourite parts of our city, and it's great. And I think the new cycling bridge will add to that. It's going to continue to connect our eastern suburbs to our central city, and supported with infrastructure like the new water reservoir and 4,000 new homes in Hamilton. It's building us to continue to be a really connected hub here in Kirikiriroa.
Thank you. Tama.
Kia ora. Oh, thank you for your question. Look, as someone who's done an Ironman before, I know what cycling feels like to sit on 6 hours of road in Taupo with no potholes. So I've spent that time on the cycle, and I actually applaud everyone who's trying to get out there and do good things for their health and well-being. My wife and I used to run some festivals based around triathlons and cycling and running, actually, out at Karapedo and here in Hamilton. So cycling, yes, support. Te Awa River Ride, the Te Awa River Trail would never have got going in the way it did without a guy like Simon Perry. And I want to acknowledge that guy and his whānau for investing the time and effort to make that happen. Absolutely phenomenal. I also want to acknowledge the John Key government and others who really drove the cycle trails throughout the country. Great idea. What I don't like is when we spend tens of millions of dollars on ideas without actually getting things done. And if I'm fortunate enough to be the MP for Hamilton West, I will focus on getting things done and not wasting money.
Thank you, Tama. I'll go Naomi and then Gaurav. I'll give Naomi first. Gaurav,
so I'm also a cyclist, but I'm a road cyclist, so I like to go fast. And the Waikato River Trail, while also beautiful and good for the kids, so you have to keep slowing down, so that doesn't really suit me. I would like our cycleways to be safer. And I've cycled around the city as well, and some places I feel safer than others. I would love to take my children cycling around the city. I would love for children to be able to bike to school safely. That is something that's really important to the Opportunities Party as well. So, tautoko cycling. Kia ora.
Thank you. And Gaurav.
How many of you here have heard of Innovation Street?
You've heard of what, sorry?
Innovation Street.
Innovation Street?
Innovating Street or Innovation
Innovating
Street.
Streets. All right.
Two of Hamilton's prominent streets blocked, $1 million spent painting the streets, and part of it was for cycleway, right? I've lived in cities where I haven't had to have a car. I lived in DC for 2 years, didn't have a car, used public transport, had a cycling pass, paid $80, and was able to use cycle share. The problem is, if you look at those Innovation Street, we haven't had that consultation, right? The street was painted first, then there was public backlash, and then we ended up removing all the bollards and stuff that we had put in, and then already spent the money. So again, the point here is...
So what were you doing around that time about it?
I spoke up for it, right? And you were the city councillor, right? What were you doing? Because it was a city council project, not a right? But the same thing happened in Gore, and they ended up blocking the hospital. And the ambulance comes in, and then they realize, oh, sorry, we're not really innovating the way we should. So then, another $1 million spent at the wrong place. So look, Te Awa Cycleway, great idea, works really well, and there was a lot of consultation with all the multiple councils involved, because it wasn't just one Hamilton City Council. I was there for the opening when Stuart Nash came. But the stakeholder conversation is important. Just because we all like cycleways doesn't mean you build them first and then public comes back and tells you that the ambulance can't get through or the car can't get through. That conversation needs to happen before, and all of us need to be part of that, and that's not happening at the moment.
We all have much more to talk about with these candidates, and I hope you do before you cast your vote. Please do. But please give them a warm round of applause. I think they've handled themselves pretty well tonight. Well done. Very well done indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please individually thank them? We'd like to thank, first of all, in absence, Dr. James McDowell. A round of applause for him, thanks. The Opportunities candidate on a lean, Naomi Pocock. Now they've got their parties sorted out. Thank you very much, Georgie Danzy. From the National Party, thank you very much, Tama Potaka, for coming along. And I guess without this man, none of this would have been possible or probable or necessary tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Gaurav Sharma. Our candidates will be circulating around, and like I said, Rudy Deploy is here representing the New Conservative, is that right? New Conservative and One Party. That's ironic. Okay.
It's two parties.
Oh, it's a coalition, so it's One Party and New Conservative. We'll go there another day. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming along.
I've been sitting here listening. As you know, these home rates are going on. The boy races, what is the government doing about it? Not one of them sits here tonight has got the guts to come out and say we're going to do this and do that.
All right, thank you. Hey, thanks. No. I am shutting you down. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good night. Thank you very much for coming. Good night.
Tough crowd, eh?